apply the same to a home-based business, the same standards as we do a business downtown in terms of keeping track of clients? What would cause us to have a different policy? I mean, it's good that people can do this in their homes, but I'm not sure that we should have a less stringent standard with respect to keeping logs of clients.
Yeah,
and that's what you were just.
And a question might be, if somebody has a home-based business and does travel, do they keep a log of what they have at home, but they don't keep one if they go out and travel?
I think it'd be wise to keep the log overall.
well, but we did talk about the log, and the chief has never used it,
Right.
and I think that I think most businesses would use the log for pay purposes and just to have a record.
For taxes, for their business, yeah.
No, I wouldn't dispute
For
that.
their insurance.
What I'm trying to point out is simply that, you know, these decisions are going to have to apply, you're going to have to think about this decision in the context of an establishment, in the context of a home, and in the context of traveling. And that's going to go for all of these things. For example, one of the restrictions is that in any permitted establishment, you can't have any alcoholic beverages on the premises. Well, is that one that's going to carry over to the home-based business? Is that one that's going to carry over to, you know, the place? You know, so those are that's just kind of, I'm just kind of trying to set the framework of how you think of these when you think, well, you know, we've got this rule for this. To what extent are you going to carry those through to all of them? And to which extent are you going to say we don't need this rule as to this?
Are we looking for a solution for a problem that doesn't exist?
Yes. Not a lot of us are gonna go out, not a lot of us are gonna have it in our home, we don't want it in our home, and we're not gonna.
Wait, let me, I'm not gonna cut you off, Susan, but are you gonna be kind of the spokesman for the person, because we need someone on the mic.
Yeah, right.
If, I don't know if you have you vote among yourselves, you care if Susan comes forward?
I think so many of us own our own business that.
I want you, the reason I want you to come forward, we can hear you, but I want, you're on TV and that you can't be heard. So I need one or two of you to come forward and maybe you rotate, but I don't want 12 of you to come forward to say the same thing 12 times. Susan, do you want to speak for him, or is anyone else?
I'm happy to speak for myself.
Okay.
Could I just say real quickly that I do get inquiries a few times a year, people wanting to have this type of a home office business, that they aren't doing massages in the house, they're just traveling. So there is, I do get requests, do we allow that? And right now we don't.
Yeah.
So I know that all of these ladies have businesses, but just to let the commission know, we do get requests for that.
And I think maybe I went to, jumped over it, but I think that we said we would allow the home office business, you can work out of your, not give a massage at home. Home office business does not require an SUP. A home-based business where you're doing the massage at home, you do require an SUP. But the home office, you do not. Where were we?
Business is a business, so why wouldn't you require them for both?
Because when you have a business at home that people are coming in and doing business, you need like a daycare. But let's say that you manage do the books on your daycare at home, but you go someplace else to do your daycare, you don't need an SUP because you're not, the integrity of the neighborhood's not being changed by people driving up and coming in and out at various times.
You just got a home office, is all you
Yeah.
Right, which we basically do anyway. I mean, I do my books at home and I answer my phone at home, you know, to make, this is actually the office.
Yeah.
So.
It's broken now. So let's, did we, Ms. Williamson, keep us on track? I better keep better notes. Did we say that we're going to allow home office businesses? Is there consensus to allow home office business? That means?
SUP.
No, this home office is work out of your house, but then you don't do the massage at home. Is there consensus that we do that?
On the traveling?
No. Yes, that you can just work out of your home, but not physically do the massage at your home.
That's a third category.
Yeah,
and we're saying that that's okay. That's in the masseuses think that that's a good third category to have in terms of these types. I mean, is there any pushback on that or any? No. Okay.
And then the second, do we have a consensus on that?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, we have a consensus on that. The next one, if they home-based business requires an SUP.
Right.
Yes.
We have,
If they're doing massages at the home, but
Right,
if
right.
not, then it doesn't, and I'd
yeah,
be
yeah,
okay
yeah,
with
it
that.
requires the SUP just like daycares when they want that. And I guess to the point Mr. Waters brought up, we have a requirement on logs now. But it's one that we don't audit. I think the only way that would ever use it, if it's a gotcha, if a criminal situation or something that maybe one masseuse calls on another masseuse and says, Sally's not doing it, and that's in your requirements. You go audit and you find it, then we have a gotcha. But is that something we should be doing, or is that?
I will tell you, in looking at the ordinances for surrounding cities and everybody that I looked at, they all require logs.
For what reason, though?
I would say if there was some kind of criminal activity or something that was going on, I believe that would be the reason for logs, to log in clientele.
Was these logs taken care of strictly by the business owners, or was the city involved in it? Or was all
The business owners keep them. If the city ever had a reason, then we would go in and
Right,
request
that's what I
logs.
said
We've just
earlier.
never had a situation where there was some criminal activity that we thought was going on that we had to do it, which is,
What if
but-
Sally calls and says, Ruthie's place isn't doing it? Are we obligated then to say, hey, Ruthie, let me see your log, she doesn't have them, we shut her down? I mean, at what point are we gonna be
I
the
think we
big
should
brother?
I think we should go ahead and, in this case, we already require it.
But I wanna know what the teeth is, how do we audit it?
Well,
That's,
if you've got a complaint, then check
We
the
have it-
complaint out.
we have it if it's
a
needed.
valid
Okay,
complaint,
so-
pull
We
it.
don't audit
okay,
it.
so
Pull the
if we,
license.
so if we do get a call from a competing masseuse and saying,
Then we can.
Sally's
check it.
not doing it, we have to go in and
I
inspect.
would call Sally and just say, I've had somebody has said that you're not keeping your logs, or you're keeping your logs. If Sally says, no, I'm not, I'll remind them that it is in the ordinance and to be in compliance with that, and probably give them, you're on notice now that you need to.
We'd probably
and-
treat it similarly to how
Yeah.
you might do like a restaurant inspection or something like
Yeah.
that. Hey, got a complaint that the bartender was using his bare hands to pick up the olives in your martini. Remember, this is what the food code requires, and if, there's more critical violations, you might take other actions.
Yeah,
But
and check on Sally in a month or two and make sure that she's down in compliance.
So is
If
our
it's-
scheduling book sufficient, and do we have to have their address on each hour that they come, if they come every week, or can it refer to their health intake form that we have them fill out with all their information?
I'm for as simple as possible.
It's
I'd like
like
the rest of the
a-
commission to weigh in. I don't
It's like
want
a
to
doctor would do
overcomplicate
their
this thing.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
something that we can, it
appointment,
just says in a
appointment schedule,
form.
that's all you would need.
Yeah,
everything.
I mean,
It's
you
a
can
log.
put,
It's a log.
for example, you put Joanne P. and, if something comes up, you know who Joanne P. is. That-
Right.
Yeah,
So I can put all that information. If they
yeah,
come
I don't
every
think you
week,
need it on here.
in that
It's something
log.
that you can say, if police come in and say, who was here November 22nd at 2 o'clock to 3, this person, oh yeah, I know that, this is who they were. Is that a
That's fine, for us, I'm sure.
And so that's for
Yes.
the business establishment, would that also be for the home
Yes,
business?
for everybody,
everybody.
yeah.
And then for the
business.
traveling,
Everybody.
okay, that's fine.
Everybody.
Now,
I'm good with that.
What about
I
a
think-
traveling person that's an independent, not associated, and they go to 121,
Right.
Park Avenue at 2 o'clock on November 22nd to 3 o'clock? Do they have to keep a log at
Why
home?
not?
I would
Yeah.
suggest.
Yes.
Okay, we're saying, I'm just
Everybody.
asking the question.
No, I
Okay.
think it's
Yes,
consistent, and
everybody.
it's
You just have a log and an address, in your scheduling book
eliminates
that you have.
confusion, yeah.
Okay.
Safety.
And obviously somebody's mad at another masseuse and they're not doing it, well, the phone call Ms. Williamson, she'll take it. Do not call the police department. So we have a consensus on what we're doing there. Are we clear on that, Ms.
Yes.
Williamson?
Yes.
Okay.
You're good.
Next item,
Hotel.
allow massage therapy in guest rooms of hotels and bed and breakfast establishments. There's no standardization among regulating cities. Some allow, some do not. Some therapists feel this is safer than in-home visits.
I think that should be up to the hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah. and
Up to
we've
the
got-
hotel and the therapist.
And
The
therapist.
hotel sign off on it.
And
Yeah.
we've got it
Yeah.
with written approval from the hotel or bed and breakfast, the manager of the establishment.
Is that how it's currently written?
That's one of the options.
Oh.
Yeah, we
It's
don't
not
allow
currently.
that now. There's nothing now. Do any of you have you had requests from hotels yet? Any of you done any advertising in hotels? You probably haven't, if you can't do it.
But that would be a good increase.
Please come forward a little bit so we can get on the mic.
We got the travel.
Oh, they got travel, now we're ready.
I did have the new hotel that's being built on, what, Fifth and,
It's already built.
it's built, okay. They
Top
called to
suite.
see if I would come with my chair to work on their employees who were working on the building. And I told them that the city didn't really allow me to do that. So I don't know if they called anybody else or not.
Okay, so, any other?
Haven't had anybody from a hotel call to say, hey, I'm in this hotel room, can you come? Because I wouldn't do it if I didn't know that.
Well, there's an obvious reason why we've had this for how many years, but, you know, in terms of just trying to
And again, it's
to
an
mitigate the
option.
risk of, you know, something, some criminal activity on the part of, and not putting our masseuses in a place where they could be, you know, physically harmed. What are the other cities? What do you know from the other cities as far as?
In talking with the other cities, some allow it, some don't. So
Okay.
there wasn't really a
Mixed bag.
standard across for that. I know in talking to some of the massage therapists, they felt like, you know, that was much more, much safer to do that, because they would go to a hotel, say, hey, I'm going to room 206, I'm giving a massage, should be an hour, I'll be back. You know, that was just a comment by a couple of the massage therapists, rather than going to somebody's home blindly.
I'm for allowing, massage therapists to go into hotels, whether it be in guest rooms, and they let the hotel management decide how they manage that. Or I could see where a business, someone has a traveling chair, and they go to the Hilton or the Marriott at Fairfield Inn, and they have it set up every Thursday from 6 to 9 in this room. They have their chair, line up, or, you know, whatever. I mean, that's a business opportunity, and I have no problem with that. If the hotel's okay with it, and it's obviously up to the therapist.
The hotel has to be
Left up
okay.
the hotel.
The hotel has to be okay, and we'll write that into we'll write that
If the
into,
hotel's okay with it.
Yeah,
Okay,
so that one's clear?
that one's
We're-
clear.
Any
any,
heartburn, ladies? Any men out there? Next item, currently a governing body approves new and renewals of massage establishment licenses. No other license comes before the governing body for approval other than cereal malt beverage, which is required by state statute. Staff would recommend issuance of the license by the city clerk after all requirements and ordinances are met. I think I'm definitely in favor of that. That's elevating each license to a city commission meeting, a regular meeting where you take action. Could be, you apply one day, depending on how the calendar falls, it could be as much as 3 weeks before it could be granted. And I don't see any reason that it should come to here. That's what we have a city manager and a city clerk for, professionals to manage that and manage it appropriately. But
Don't
the
the-
other commissioners feel.
don't the special use permits though have to come to the commission?
That's different, yeah, that's different. This is just the licensing. Yes, SUP
Oh,
always comes here. SUP is a
Right,
separate
right.
issue.
Yeah, because the special use permit has to be done by an ordinance also.
Yeah,
so.
the SUP is,
oh, this is for massage establishment licenses,
just
the
the
first
regular
category.
licenses, yeah.
Issued by the city clerk.
The only other license that we issue is when we do the annual cereal malt beverages, or when a new restaurant opens up and they wanna sell beer, or, like Main Street did last night, that we gave them approval for alcohol drinks.
I'll preview a little bit of what's to come, but one of the things in here will be a discussion of, in the case of a revocation or termination of permit, to what extent does that require coming to the governing body? I believe under your current code, the revocations and terminations require notice, opportunity to come before you to be heard, and that's gonna be something we'll talk about, whether that is something you want the revocations and terminations to have to come to you, or whether you just want appeals of an administrative decision to come to you. So a little bit of a preview, but there could be, depending on the discussion we'll have later about applications in general coming to you for attention.
Okay. But right now, we're on, this, should we give the clerk, the responsibility and the authority to issue licenses once the
Yes.
massage therapist has issued, presented the proper documents?
Yes.
I would say yes, let's keep this as simplified as we can.
And we have a consensus on that, okay.
Are there licenses both for the individual masseuses and the
Yes.
establishment, and so what we just talked about applies to both? Or was it just
currently-
I thought it was just the massage
Only
establishment.
the establishment currently comes
Right.
to, before the governing body for approval.
Right, so, and we're saying for that category of
Just
masseuse-
give me the
Yes,
authority once
I
everything's met to
agree
issue
with
the
that,
license as soon as everything.
but individual licenses, is that gonna be a little bit different?
We're gonna do it the same way we always have.
Okay.
And after everything is met, then I just issue the license.
When you say do it the way we always have, we haven't always, we've never done it.
For the individual,
Individual.
for the individual, those have always just been, once everything is
Okay,
satisfied
yeah.
with the application, it's
just
issued
trying to
by
make
the
the
clerk
distinction
without
between
coming
the
for the
two,
governing
so.
body.
So our consensus is that the clerk has responsibility for this. That
Yes.
will not come to us. We'll talk about the
Yes.
revocation, the appeals process later on, but thank you for bringing it up, Mr. Waters.
Yes.
So, discussion point number 5, and anybody has any heartburn out there, raise their hand and we will hear you. Where'd I go here? Provision to exempt sole practitioners who own and operate alone to pay the annual massage therapy establishment fee only. No cost for massage therapist license. Translate, Ms. Williamson, what was that one
Okay,
about?
so on this one, it was just, a provision that was in one of the cities, I believe it was Lenexa, but don't quote me on that, where they allow, if it's a sole practitioner, they're the only, they own their business, they're the only one, they don't have employees or anything like that, then, all they had to pay was the establishment fee, and they didn't have to pay then a fee for their own massage, therapist license.
What do
It
we
was
have
just-
right now, if I own ABC Massage over here, how much do I pay? $300, $300?
$350 for the establishment.
Okay, and then I have 3 massage therapists to work. Does each one of them?
Each one of those then has a license and it's $50 per year.
Okay,
So
so,
this
so
was,
this is if you're a sole practitioner, but if you have if you have an establishment, a fixed establishment, whether it be in-house or a building, my personal feeling, but it will get the other commissioners weigh in, if you're running a business out of a building, you need the establishment license of $350, and then you need your individual license of $50. Well, because,
Why you double jamming them?
Yeah.
what do we do now? Do we do that now?
right now, what we do is they pay the establishment fee and they pay the license. So this was just an option that I found from one of the cities, that if they have it's just them, it's just their business, they buy the establishment fee, establishment license only, and then they waive the individual.
Okay.
So that was
So they
just
pay
an option.
$350, not $350 plus $50.
Yeah.
And if they run it out of their house, that they allow, they're running an at-home business, SUP, they pay the $350.
Right.
Now, what if they do the home office business, they just take out calls, is that
$350.
$350?
Currently, it would be, yeah.
$350
I would say
and not $50,
$350,
okay.
and then, yeah, and if
Okay.
they were, so this was just an option, I thought I would, provide, give the governing body an option to give a, kind of a break to a sole proprietor.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be okay
But
with that.
it's just an option.
Why are we so high on the license?
I don't know, that will be one
We
of,
don't do anything.
I think we're gonna get to that.
yeah, that'll
Bring that
be,
expense.
yeah, that's toward the end to talk about the
It can't be
fees.
prorated, like when I first opened, it
We-
was.
We
Yeah,
don't
the
prorate
fees
any
are
license.
later in the
Yeah, none of our
discussion.
licenses are prorated. And we're gonna get to the licensing dollar amount.
Yeah.
So right now, the discussion point is, if you're a sole practitioner, you pay the annual establishment fee only and no, if I'm,
But we're
If
able
I-
to travel
Yeah,
with
no
that.
therapy.
yeah, if you're a sole practitioner, and you have your building or your home office, but then you hire another therapist,
They have-
then that one has
Has to
to
have a license.
Yeah.
get the fee.
So
Okay.
the sole practitioner part of this applies to all 3 types of the establishment,
Right.
the home business, and the home office,
Right.
correct?
Correct.
The whole thing is probably not trying to double jeopardy in terms of the fees, right? We're trying to,
What if you have an establishment that is like your salon model, where you have 5 sole practitioners in one establishment?
Is that a sole practitioner? Is it under the auspices, under the aegis of of the establishment, of the
If
salon.
everyone has their own business, it could be.
It could be
Yeah,
if
if
they
it's
were
like
booth
one of those
rental,
rental
yeah, like
places.
booth
Exactly
rental.
right, so you could have a booth rental situation of, an establishment that could have 10, sole practitioners in there. And then you're talking about, and it's,
The way it stands now, it'd be $350 a person.
right.
So, yeah.
It'd be $350 person, if you had one person that was a sole practitioner, it'd be $350. If you hired a second person, then you've got $350, and presumably you'd add, since it's no longer a sole practitioner, you'd have a 50-50, so it'd go up to $450.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're a sole practitioner, you have your building, you run it by yourself, $350. We waive the
That's
$50
what I-
individual one. But halfway through the year, hey, I've got enough business, I have to bring on another one. So you each now have to use an individual license, another $50.
Well, that
Yeah,
doesn't fall
$50,
on the
right,
owner
'cause
anyway,
they're
that would fall on the
Employee,
therapist, doesn't
it
it?
would be like an
The
employee.
$50?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Your
yeah.
personal license.
Yeah, but if you're a sole proprietor, you're the owner
You're
and the
double.
Right, I
therapist.
understand that.
And the operator, you have to.
And that's a one-time fee for the 350?
An annual fee every year.
We're gonna talk about fees though.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about fees later,
Yeah.
I think.
So, I think someone wants to speak there.
Well, this
Yes,
is,
ma'am.
this is about
Go
as clear
ahead
as.
and identify yourself too. Then she'll
I'm
be on
Debbie
TV.
Levitt with Healing Touch. So are you saying that as a sole proprietor, like I own the business, but I don't hire anybody? Sandy and I work as a cooperative. She comes in and does her massages at my establishment and pays me a rental fee for her room.
You have to
So
pay
not
for-
everybody's hired. She does her own books, she does her own appointments. I do
So it's her
mine.
own business.
Yeah.
It's own business, but you provide the establishment, and that
And
establishment
linens.
has to pay $350.
Yes.
And then she has to pay $50 for her license.
No, she would be a
No,
sole,
'cause she
Will I
doesn't
be
work for
subject
her.
to the $50?
Say,
if she's a sole proprietor as well, even though she's paying a booth rental, she would pay $350 as well.
Right.
okay, yeah.
She's
Right
her
now,
own-
the way
has
it's
her
set
own
up, both of
business.
them are $350.
Yeah, unless you want to hire her, then she'd get out for 50.
Say that again?
If you're your own business, yes.
Yeah, if you're your own
If your own
business, if you're
business.
doing a booth rental, it basically,
Be the same.
is what Mr.
But
Waters said.
that's what a hair place is gonna be doing. They're
Yeah,
gonna rent
yeah.
you a room.
Yeah,
So you're
Yeah.
gonna charge the hair place $350 and then the massage therapist $350?
the way it's set up right now, until we get to fees, that's the way it's, what we're discussing right now, right, Mr. Waters?
I mean,
You understand your question?
yeah, I mean,
And
that's-
I understand your question too, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right.
Unless she pays her commission, she has to get her own establishment license to work in her building.
Right.
That's not the way it works with cosmetology. You
have a state But cosmetology license, is and then different.
Each individual, you have your own cosmetology license. There's only one business license for the building, for everybody.
And that would be another approach, that you treat it as an establishment license as a physical premises, and then anybody within that has to. So, for the example, the sole proprietor could be, you have to, if it's your building, it's $350, but it's more, and then you do the $50 per other person. That's another way to skin the
Yeah,
cat.
because they all.
Yeah, that would make more sense.
That would seem, I don't know, that seems the most simple and straightforward thing to
And
do,
Is
but.
it
I
rent
think
or
currently, the
commission?
way the license for you to work is, she's got a license under your business.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's probably the way just to kind of,
How much is the other lady paying then? For
$50 for
50?
her, for her license.
But I've had to pay an establishment fee
Yes,
and a
yes.
massage.
Well, and that's what we're talking about,
Yeah.
but I'm,
But what I'm saying is not everybody's hiring massage therapists to work under their establishment. Not everybody operates business that way. So,
They become an independent contractor. Right.
But that's the way that, currently, I will say that's the way that whether or not you own a business and you have 4 other massage therapists there, when we're issuing that license for those individuals,
yeah, I'm responsible for my business name.
they're saying they're working for you, so that's under that establishment license. Whether or not they're renting, we don't ask, are you really
Right.
renting that space?
Right.
Are you really, that part of the business, we don't ask. We just ask what establishment and what location are you being licensed, that you're associated with.
I think the distinguishing is physical location versus person.
Yeah.
How much do you want to charge a physical location? How much do you want to charge a person? And if there's one person that is the owner of the physical location and a massage therapist himself, do you want to do, this person has to pay the establishment fee and a massage fee, or is there some other credit that if the person that pays the establishment fee doesn't have to then pay a second? Or do you just say, no matter what, the location and whoever is responsible for it pays the location fee, and then every individual person has their own thing? So I think those are the two piles that you break it into.
In this case, the owner of the building would be, the owner of the business of that location would be paying a fee, and according to this, not paying an extra license fee. But anyone else who comes in and works in that establishment would be paying just the license fee as part of it.
That's,
I would go with that.
But I would say once that individual, whoever is the owner of that licensed establishment, the establishment license, once they allow other people to come in, now you don't get that $50 perk.
Say that again?
Wait a minute, for herself?
Why?
Why?
That's the question. That's, if you're still saying that it's,
It doesn't matter whether she's the only one or not, because she's paid the fee for the, she's paid the fee for the company. It shouldn't matter who else comes in. The other
Everybody else
person
that comes in
has gotta pay for their fee.
I think that's, I mean, I think that would, if I'm, understand how it currently works right, you'd be applying the $350 to a fee, and instead of $350 for everybody else, you'd be knocking those fees down to $50.
Right.
Per person,
Yes.
so that'd be a pretty
Exactly.
big-
Yes.
So then, and so it doesn't, I mean, that could be one option, is that you don't tie a person to the place in some way, and say, well, if you're also the person who's who does massage and you have the place, you get a break. You can, one option would be just, whatever the place is, no matter what, that's responsible for fee, and then every person, whether you own it or not, is a fee under this way. I think it seemed to be cheaper,
Good and
but.
clean.
Would that be easy for you? Would that be all right for?
I think the consensus seems to be that with the massage establishment, the $350, you should essentially get a license.
One license.
You get one license.
That's the question. If you pay the $50, you get one free license, or,
Yes.
Right.
And then each additional license is $50.
And they're responsible
Yes.
for that, yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
is that,
But we have a consensus on that?
Yes.
I think it sounds, that's fairly straightforward, unless there's any objections from our, masseuses, but I thought Nancy explained it pretty well. I agree with that approach.
Thank you, sir.
So we're clear, we have a consensus there. You with us, Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Okay. Next item, should there be a requirement for managers of the establishment to be certified in CPR or first aid? And first aid, not or, and. Standardization among required cities is that they require managers of the establishment to be certified in CPR and first aid. That's what standardization, you say every city's had that?
every city that I checked with, required that.
Well, how would this work for people that are out on calls, they're not managers? And they don't need a requirement?
Well, they're,
Well, this is just so this portion is just about the establishment. So if you're an establishment, and this is probably written more for establishments that are a larger establishment that have, maybe 6 or 7, maybe a dozen massage therapists, and they usually have a manager that takes care of the operation.
Well, their own liability may require that they have that as well.
And even though we may not have a business like that now, that doesn't mean that in the future we might not. But again, in checking with all the other cities, they all require it. Doesn't mean that we have to. I'm just letting you know that as a standardization.
what did you say?
Hair salons don't have it, barbers don't have it.
And that goes back to
You
the
don't
same
have it.
framework we discussed. Do you want this for the establishment, that's yours, that's somebody there? Does that include somebody at a home business, has to have that or not?
And then the
And then
whole,
the traveling person, does it go down to the individual level? If that's what you're doing, you have to be individually certified. So that's,
And would you
again,
require us to do it? I mean,
Well, I know,
we
that's
wanna be
what I
certified,
meant.
and like I said in my letter, I wouldn't want to do it. I couldn't do it if they were on the table. I would have to pull them on the floor or climb up on the table. I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it.
What if, I'm just thinking out loud here, I don't think we have many massage establishments, so if there's establishment has 5 masseuses. Are there any that have more than 3 masseuses in town that are going? I mean, what if we put a requirement in? If you have an establishment with 5 active masseuses, and you have to define what's the definition of active, that once you hit that threshold, there's gotta be somebody there that has an AED machine, no CPR, and can put on a Band-Aid. I don't know. I mean,
No
I
other
don't know.
businesses require that. Gronis doesn't have to do
Yeah,
that.
I know. I'm asking, I'm just bringing it in.
But
Yeah, I'm-
in home care, everybody that goes in and cleans houses for my company has to have CPR and first aid.
But that's a company
It's
requirement.
not medical, it's home, it's cleaning houses.
But that's your company requirement.
That's
It's
a
not a
company
it's not a
requirement.
government requirement. And I see the wisdom in it, but I hate being the government that tells you need to do that. If I ran a business, I would hope that some businesses would do that, and then they'd make that as an advertising point. Hey, I've got an AED here, CPR qualified, et cetera. But do I want to, as the government, require the businesses to do that?
I
Well-
don't see that we can mandate it.
I think we can take that out because their own liability insurance may require it anyway.
I've been doing
that
this
correct?
for 25 years here, and I have never come up with an opportunity where I've had to even closely do CPR on somebody. So,
So you've never
What's
been
the
required
point?
to have it then,
Yeah.
no,
by your insurance or
no,
anything? Okay,
no.
I'd be okay with taking that out.
What about, do we have a consensus to not require that? Yes, ma'am.
I am required to do it for AMTA, which is my insurance. I do require everybody in my spa to have it, and we will just make it one of our advertising things.
Yeah, I think that's a
But
selling point.
that's a choice that
We
I
don't-
made.
yeah, we
That's
don't
a
need
choice that my business decided without you guys having it be a law.
Yeah,
It doesn't
those
need
are
that
voluntary
ordinance.
standards,
Voluntary
I believe,
standard,
that
yeah.
we
I
don't
agree.
need to
You don't need
put
that.
on you.
Okay. Let's take it out.
I was just gonna say an AED costs like $2,000.
Well, I know, I
So-
just threw that out. I'm not gonna require anybody to have an
Okay.
AED, but if I had a huge establishment with multiple, dozen
Well, yeah,
masseuses, I would
Yeah.
definitely have an
That would be
AED there and use that as a
enormous
selling
expense.
point.
Okay.
Okay. So we're taking out requirement, for CPR and first aid, but, I think it's good for everybody, whether you be a massage therapist or not, at least, basic first aid and, CPR. Next discussion item, background checks. Cities are limited by state statute on what police departments can check. Some items are public record and can be checked by the police department if background checks are performed. It says pre-formed, but I think performed is what they should be done by third party. Options include, I'm sure it's NCIC, what is it? KBI website, pays the fee, has a background check done, and provides results to the city clerk. Keep in mind, KBI is restricted to Kansas only. You can clean record in Kansas, if Charlie Manson moves to Kansas from California, KBI check comes back clean. That's an exaggeration, but is that true?
No, that's absolutely true.
Yeah. If the city contracts with third party to perform background checks, city pays the fee that's recouped by the application fee. Third party check, what is it, $200, Mr. Kramer, Ms. Williamson?
In checking with some other cities that use a third party, and there was one particular company that came up that several cities use. It depends on how extensive and how much, how many different locations they have to check. The person move around a lot, but the standard is about $35. It can go up, more if they
What
have
do we
to
require
separate.
now?
Right now, they fill out the form, they answer some questions, we just kind of give it a,
So this is the most worrisome part for me.
Yes.
Right? We are giving the impression to everybody that we are doing some extensive background check, and we are not.
Okay.
I am specifically prohibited from.
Probably pay $350.
I am specifically prohibited from using the databases that we have access to for the purpose of licensing. It specifically prohibits that. So this is the one that worries me the most about the term background check, and I want to try and make sure we have a clear understanding. Anyone can go on and look to see if a person is on the National Sex Offense Registry. Anybody can do that. Anybody can go and see if a person has a previous felony criminal conviction. That stuff is public record. So what worries me is that the general public would see this and say to themselves, oh, the police department said they're okay because they did a background check. And so I'm really conscious of this particular area. Whether or not you require the person to do the KBI background check or not is sort of entirely up to you. That's a $35 fee. They get their own criminal history check and they turn it in. We have a lot of databases that we have access to, but they are strictly for law enforcement investigations only. And so I want to weigh in fairly heavily on this. The question, I think, for everybody is what are we trying to prevent? I think it's a sex offender being a massage person, right? Or a violent criminal offender, right? Those things I think are fairly easy to find out. But that's what it would include. It wouldn't include anything beyond that.
Is it something, I know there's a sex offender registry, and there's a website, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Is it something that the clerk or the clerk's office, somebody comes in, here's my application, they, not Google it, but hit that thing, put in their name, etc. It's there or it's not there. If no offense, there is an offense, then sorry, you're denied. And is there also a simple one if the clerk's office has the website for felony convictions?
Yes, is the answer to that question, to both of the answers to those questions.
So is that something the clerk's office could do in 5 minutes or less?
Yes.
I would
I
fax it
think-
over to the police chief to do,
But-
because that would take
but
me
we can
5
do
minutes
it.
or less.
You can train the clerk's office.
Right. We can do it, it's fine. It just, I just want to be absolutely crystal clear what the definition of background check is.
Yeah.
And it is purely public record that anybody sitting in this room could do at home with a computer, access to the internet. That's what we would be doing. We can say the police department did a background check, but that's what it means.
Well, this doesn't say it's requiring it, it just says authorization for.
I'm talking about now. I get them all the time, hey, chief, it's time to do a license for a massage parlor, can you approve them? Which there's sort of a presumption that I'm doing this complicated, and I'm not, and I can't, so.
I think what Pat brought up is we've seen a lot of cities run into this with their own internal police departments, and some are still doing it, and they know they gotta get out of that business, so they're farming it out to the third party. I think we saw in our research that more companies or more cities are going to this $35 or whatever it is, third party. Consistency takes it out of Pat's, doesn't have to do this as, part of his law enforcement time spending doing these searches, and it's a standardization. It's included in your application fee, so we're not including more costs, and everybody does the same thing. If you're gonna go that direction, it's the direction.
If we're all gonna go in that direction, and I'm very strong in this feeling too, I want to find on what kicks you out of the system. If you're on a sex offender registry, I'd say that would do it. If you have a conviction, what type of conviction? A class A felony or,
Well, I think we
class D
covered that.
misdemeanor. No, all we have right here is, we do the background check. But what determines whether, you got this, so here's the person's record.
I would say if you have been convicted of prostitution.
That's the sex
It
thing.
is in here, if you look at section 2690,
No, all the way.
Page 14,
Page
it
14.
or
has.
page 8, however this is. Page 8. Right, it's 8, down in the right corner, page 8.
So it has those things already, what disqualify an establishment and then an individual later from getting a license.
Okay,
This
Jessica,
one,
you were
a
gonna say
personal
something, I'm sorry.
felony
No,
is
this is
defined by
more
Kansas
towards
law.
kitchens. Would a thorough background check prevent a lot of, like I've been reading in Lawrence and Topeka, who have had prostitution or trafficking rings? And would that have helped prevent something like that? Because from what I understand, the ones that got busted in Lawrence were working in Baser at one point in time.
So just so I'm clear, the question is, would a thorough background check would have prevented
Yes.
what happened? I can't guarantee that the answer to that question is yes. Yeah. Those, for specific reasons, I believe those folks came from a different country, and we're relatively new to the area, so, I can look at a lot of things. I'm not sure I can look at China, probably, but, you know, that's the reason why I wanna have this discussion, so that people have a fair understanding of what we're committing ourselves to relative to this background check. If you want the city to do it, whether it's Carla or me, probably me, the 5-minute quick internet checks on the registry, on both of those registers, that's what we get. If you want something more than that, I would recommend the third-party approach as the best alternative to that. That is not too cumbersome of an administrative task, just for what we were talking about, but anything beyond that, I think that's probably.
Either way, and either of those options would be covered by the application fee
Correct.
currently?
Yes.
Right.
So either.
So you're not saying add $35?
No.
Just in that.
It's already.
We think we can get a good third-party background check within.
35.
I would say that would be the better way to go, but.
Okay.
Yeah, so we haven't been being checked on, but we've been paying $350. Is that right?
Yeah, no, you haven't checked on, but.
Well, I know you're not a criminal, so.
This is
I've been signing your application for like 20 years, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think, if that's the consensus, I don't know that we need to get, we need to put into the ordinance, a third party, but, I don't know that we need to get into that detail. We'd probably word it in such a way, that just authorizes the city to do that. And then
Correct.
we just, so you would understand how it would work in practice, but we
Yes.
probably wouldn't codify down to that level.
On the disqualifications here, a person felony is defined by Kansas law, a non-person felony, an offense involving sexual misconduct of children, and one's called obscenity. What is,
You know it when you see it.
right?
That's what it says. And if we got something.
What is obscenity?
So that's a case-by-case basis, right, in which I would put a mechanism, if we were to say what we have constitutes an obscenity and they would get their application denied, that might be a measure by which you would put in there, you can appeal that, and then you get to collectively decide whether you agree with our decision or not.
Well, I read the first 3 offenses, then we have obscenity, then after that prostitution, promoting prostitution, solicitation, pandering or other sexually related offenses, etc. But can you give me a I understand the rest of them. I can't, tell me obscenity.
This
gets
is
mad and says a bad word to somebody, is that an obscenity?
You
would never do that, Susan, I know.
A little bit similar to, sometimes Pat has a youth coach where there's not a spelled out offense, but the preponderance of evidence, he decides to decline that. And that is where you use professional experience and understanding. And it may not be exactly spelled out, but he has the discretion at that point to say you're not going to participate as a youth coach.
There is a Kansas statute on obscenity and promoting obscenity, and it has a list of things that even it would qualify as obscene.
Okay.
I don't know if I need to read them.
So there is something that says what obscenity is.
There's a Kansas statute
Okay,
that
okay.
at least provides the criteria for what is to be considered.
Okay.
I've heard that $35, is it $350 or $35? So I thought I heard $35, so I thought we were talking about checking for individual license.
Currently, the fee for a new establishment license is $350. A renewal of an establishment fee is half of that and $175.
So we're gonna maybe address that in a later
I've got
later
kind
issue.
of one of the.
But what we're saying within the application fee of $350, this background check by a third party would be accomplished with no increase in price.
Correct.
Or it could be done by the city, but
No.
I don't think that.
Of course, remember, you're talking about an establishment fee. If you're talking about a personal license fee,
that's what
would only be $50. I just wanted to make sure that.
And here are we talking? Which one are we talking? We talking both
Right now, we're talking about the establishment.
Okay.
We'll be talking about the individual in a little while.
All right, I got it.
Okay, are we Are we clear on this?
Yes, we're clear.
Okay, next item is hours of operation. Current city ordinance states the business shall be closed and operation shall cease between the hours of midnight and 6 a.m. Keep in mind, current ordinances include, quote, adult, unquote, businesses such as bathhouses, body painting studios, and modeling studios, of which we have none, am I correct?
That's correct.
And standard practice among regulating cities is that no massage business is allowed to operate between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. in establishment or off premises. That means no traveling or home base or business, either midnight to 6 a.m. or 10 p.m. 6 a.m. or we open it up 24 hours or whatever we determine those hours to be. Should we establish what hours should be?
I think 10 to 6
I think
is
10 to 6
reasonable.
is what we've got is.
It was like 10 to 9 is what was proposed before, but there are some that would be wanting to have that done early, so.
Can
Yes,
I
ma'am.
ask how late everybody works?
I'm not up past 10 p.m., I promise.
Not past 7.
I'm done at 6.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm done about 7 o'clock.
Yeah,
But sometimes I go in at 6 o'clock.
Yeah,
I do have 6 a.m. clients. A client will show
Right,
up
so
10
we
minutes
said
early.
10 p.m. to 6.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I have more problems with earlier than I do with later.
Yeah.
So these other cities are doing 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Are we comfortable with that? I am.
We have midnight to 6 right now, correct?
Correct.
But she just asked, if one of her 6 a.m. clients comes in at 5:50 a.m.
It's against the law.
Okay.
Yeah, in reality, it's just like selling beer, you can't sell it till 9 in the morning or something like that. You go to the grocery store at
They
10
can
to.
come in, they just can't work on it.
Yeah, that's right.
You have to wait till 6.
Make a cup of coffee.
That's true.
If we have it from, my question is, we have a midnight to 6 right now, those 6 hours. Hasn't been a problem with it. Why do we even wanna change it? Why change it to 10? Why not just leave it as
Oh,
is?
the original one I saw was 10 to 9. I don't know.
No, currently it's midnight to 6.
Really? Okay.
And
Where did I
I'm in
see
favor
that?
just,
That's fine.
and we're not saying you have to stay open.
I thought we decided last time we were gonna change it to midnight to 6. That's what I thought happened at the last meeting when we discussed that
Yes, I
it
didn't
was
think we got
something
that
different
far.
in the.
We
We
never
never
got
got that far.
Right, well, I thought we did
That
on
was,
that one. but-
actually, it was with the home-based business. So at a private residency, you agreed that you wanted it from midnight to 6 a.m. No,
I'm okay with that.
so, I mean, we can keep it the way it is.
It's midnight to 6.
What?
In-home, same.
Yeah, if you have an SUP, part of the SUP application process, they let the neighbors know and say, this could operate except for the hours from midnight to 6 a.m.
And that is something you could also do separately as a condition on an SUP.
That's correct.
You could establish different hours, not on the massage establishment side of things, but on the SUP side of it. You could establish different rules, regulations, because again, every location might be different as terms of traffic or parking or
neighbors,
near
yeah.
a school or what have you. So you could set other regulations for those home businesses, not through this code, but through your zoning processes.
I would say
10
the
to 6
midnight,
wouldn't
because
feel
if
good in
if
that.
you're able to go to hotels now, if somebody gets in an 8:30 flight or something, and they
Yeah.
wanna get a massage, you're gonna go after 9.
Yeah,
Or 10, I mean, if you started it, I would leave it at midnight,
Yeah,
though
right.
most of us aren't gonna do it.
yeah, and I don't think many of you are gonna take calls after midnight, that's a personal
Yeah, I
choice,
mean,
but
But
that's,
if,
you should run your business.
yeah.
So, are we okay with leaving it as is, midnight to 6?
Yeah.
Next item is, alcohol. Specifically, I'll addressing here, this section is highlighted only to allow language that allows in-home massage. Staff will work with the city attorney to substitute language for in-home massage. No action or decision needed by the governing body.
It's the issue I highlighted for you earlier, that, again, one of the regulations that applies to establishments will probably be they will be different for in-home. This would be one of them, unless you decide that in order to qualify for your home as an establishment, that you can't have alcohol within the premises. I mean, you could decide that if you wanted, but I think this was an example where we thought not all the rules that apply to establishments as will apply to down the scale.
But I think, can't we say in home, you cannot
Serve.
offer or serve, or,
Yes.
but if somebody has.
Right, but right now the
wine-
prohibition is that it can't even be there, or you can't
Oh,
permit somebody to bring it on.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, so
How many,
that's
how many of the in-home people are teetotalers?
So that's.
So we'll just work to get that language in there that allows it to.
Yeah, they obviously can't serve it,
That I
but,
can have
you
a
know.
beer in my refrigerator and that
Sure,
doesn't.
exactly.
Okay. Educational requirements of therapists. I'm sure we'll have a lot of input.
Where are we?
Basically, we're
Wait a
talking
minute,
CJ.
wait a minute. Down here, provision for the dressing rooms,
What item are you under?
E, right down from where you just were.
E.
Sorry, it's highlighted on here, but I didn't necessarily have it on here.
Page 10 on the right side.
Right side's 10.
Under what discussion item, Nancy?
Where we just were talking about.
8?
Actually,
I don't have that.
8, under
Yeah.
8.
It's not on this.
I don't have it as a discussion item, I just had it highlighted here, and again, it's just something we need
Okay,
to address with
and
the
on
home-based
the, okay,
business, so.
I don't have the hard copy, I just have,
Yeah.
okay. What does it
Well, I'm on
say?
this one, here you go. I brought my old.
Provision for a separate dressing room for each sex must be available on the premises with individual lockers for each employee. I think that individual lockers for each employee need to come out of that, that's not necessary. And basically dedicated dressing space needs to be on the
You can address
premises.
at the table. We leave the person gets undressed.
That's why I say not dressing rooms necessarily, but dedicated dressing space on the premises. A
Other
dedicated,
than where the massage table is? Because how are they gonna get?
it doesn't
No,
say
we
other
don't
than
wanna
where
do
massage.
anything.
Yeah, that's,
We'll get this goes to,
For
the
each
establishment has
sex, it's
separate.
for each
has
sex.
separate things. If it's an in-home, do you want to say it's okay for you to just
Well,
use
she's
the
asking
guest
about that.
bathroom? Or are you gonna require your in-home businesses to, actually have some sort of renovation work that the downstairs basement is done? That's the discussion item as you start opening these things up. There
No,
are
I don't think
physical
they should be.
regulations on establishments that you have, separate dressing rooms, et cetera, et cetera. To what extent are you gonna carry any of those over to a home occupation business? Where you
Do we have,
massaging?
we don't have those requirements on establishments now.
Yes, we do.
We do.
We have some.
dressing rooms?
What is our,
Areas there?
everybody be quiet here, you might be, exercise your Fifth Amendment here. Go ahead.
Provisions for a separate dressing room for each sex must be available on the premises with individual lockers for each employee. Doors to such dressing rooms shall open inward and shall be self-closing.
Oh, that's part of our ordinance right now?
It is part of your ordinance right now.
No, for all, for an
everything,
establishment.
for establishment.
Yeah, I never
For
had to go to.
No, she wrote that in
Seriously?
there, the question, that's her question.
Can you say, do we have-
We need to
I
discuss
built
it.
my establishment and wasn't told that, and you guys inspected it, and I don't have self-closing
I've
doors.
done 2, and yeah.
How do the doors on your lockers open? It's very important they open in, not out. Yeah, but that's up to the point of
Yeah.
Well,
being
the
literal.
lockers
Men
are for
and women getting-
employees.
Well, unless
I
they're a
know.
couple, you know.
Each room is both male and female according to who happens to be in there.
Right.
And you don't wanna go down the route of determining what sex someone thinks that they are while they're standing next to the table.
And how do they get from the dressing room?
I think it's an overreach on our part, but obviously we have this in the ordinance now, and we need to address it, we as a commission,
You know what?
we leave it or
This
leave
doesn't
it?
talk about, this does not talk about the people who are coming in, this talks about employees.
Yeah, this talks
Read
about
it.
employees.
That's why I think it should be scratched, this talks about employees.
We trust
Yeah, that comes under conduct.
Yeah.
Okay, where are we, Mr. Ward? This is only about employees, not
That's what
about,
that section
Yes.
does provide.
So we can scratch that whole section.
I think that whole
Yeah,
section
'cause
should
it's
be
got heat room,
scrapped.
tables, showers, and everything else in it, so I would kill C on down.
Yeah, I
okay,
understand why that would
which
be
one
here.
is this? So, cause I
It's E, it's under
It's 8.
number 8E, letter E,
Page 10.
page 10 on the right side.
Okay, there.
There's C, which actually covers the whole thing, is the conduct on premises.
Okay.
And this is where she.
You also have some rules in current code section 26.93 that aren't just to employees, but they describe lavatories or wash basins provided with both hot and cool running water shall be installed.
Yeah.
Neither the toilet room or vestibule.
Right.
There's some other,
That's on farther though, isn't it?
that's farther down, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a single water closet per sex shall be provided for each 20 or more employees or patrons of that sex on the premises at any one time.
Well, that's
That might not
true.
be an
That's
issue.
different, yeah.
That's the same thing that Home Depot
So
requires.
there are things like that in here, that may or may not apply to
But
home
here,
businesses
but
as well.
as Commissioner Dedekey pointed out and Commissioner Bowder, this is all about employees, not about customers.
Yes.
Not all of them.
Really?
No, but this
Okay,
one
which one is
This,
not?
this one, the first one you're talking about was, but for example, some of the stuff on lavatories and wash bays applies to anybody.
What
Right,
number
but this
is that?
one,
Where are you, Doug?
26-93, under the existing code.
I'm on section 2693, and it's that name of that heading.
Supervision.
or
That's-
Supervision.
That's the, I think I'm looking at the existing code. So this is the revised document that,
Correct.
Carla had put together.
but just talking about that one section E is only talking about employees, and I don't see
That
any
one
reason to
section,
have
right.
that.
And we can make some modifications to that for a home-based business. Mr. Waters and I can work on that.
I think there needs to be, there's a theme running through here that there will be, have to,
Correct.
some modifications made.
So we
for
can,
home
yeah,
business.
that one is just, we're gonna need to make some modifications for a home-based business. And so we'll look at some reasonable language for that.
Looks like the similar language is, in this one, is on section 26-89, starting on page 6. There's some provisions there.
What is the thinking behind separate dressing rooms for employees? And we've had that, and have we inspected massage establishments?
Yes.
And do we ever go out and say, where's your dressing room for this employee and that employee?
Well, I think most of our establishments only have female employees. So I don't know that that's really
But we're
been.
not changing our clothes.
No, I know, so I'm wondering, I'm wondering, you know, the Commissioner
Yeah.
Bowder's point, throw out the whole
Yes.
thing.
Yeah,
we just
the whites in there.
We just delete the things that don't belong.
Just delete it.
Yeah.
Is there, what do you think, Commissioner Griswold?
We're talking about E.
E,
I'm comfortable with eliminating that.
It's
Because
employees.
obviously, a lot of this was written decades ago, so.
F, all licensed employees and massage therapists must be modestly attired. Give me a definition.
These are all functions of when it was written, so,
Yeah, I know.
you know.
Right.
And they were written to prevent certain actions, and I don't want to handcuff legitimate businesses that we have here.
Yeah, we can remove E.
I would,
I think in-
E, F, I think maybe you wanna keep that there, but E, I don't have any problem
What's F?
eliminating that.
All licensed employees and massage therapists must be modestly attired.
Well, that would come under the obscenity part.
I like this one, diaphanous or transparent clothing is prohibited. What is diaphanous, Mr. Waters? Come on, you've got it.
It's
See-through.
No, transparent is, what is diaphanous?
And I will tell you, that comes from every.
Yeah, I'm sure this is
Yeah,
what it is.
it's just standard
Right,
language.
we need that in there. I
Yeah.
think we need
Yeah.
that in there.
We're okay with that. There's
Yeah.
no changes in that. Let's move on.
Okay. Next item, we're on the CEUs now. CEUs, ladies, I know this one strikes home. Educational requirements of therapists as in 26-131. Discussion item number 11. Do we require CEUs? Give us a bit more background, Ms. Williamson, where we were on this.
On this one, again, as I looked at other ordinances from other cities, I found that all of them did require, CEUs. Again, that doesn't mean that we have to, I'm just telling you that was the standard, of all other cities. And we can, if the governing body wants to require it, they can, I think most of them were 12. Okay, so, other cities regulated massage therapists, required 500 hours of, theory and practice, required first aid and CPR. The only other city that did not require those, in addition to us right now, we have 70. Lansing also had their same requirement of only 70 hours of instruction with no first aid or CPR or continuing education requirements. We did look at the 25 massage therapists that we currently license, and of those 25, only 8 did not have the 500 hours of schooling. That would be, if we bumped it up to 500 hours. We've got some language in there that would grandfather existing therapists if the governing body would want to include those, so that they wouldn't have to go and get those additional hours. So, again, it's just an option of what the governing body would want to do.
How did the community, the community overall come up with 500 hours? Do we have any idea? I mean, that
Massage
seems.
schools,
Huh?
massage schools make
When I
money
first
off of
started,
it.
that was, when I first started, they didn't require us to take the 500-hour
Right.
course. You paid as you went, but that was
Sure.
what they, now where I went, now has a 750-hour course that you would have to sign up for and pay the fee for that.
And what's the purpose behind it?
They make money.
They make
They
money.
make money.
They make money.
It's a trade school.
Yeah.
So you're not
And
learning nothing
we
new?
can't even really go there to get continuing education.
Yeah.
I don't know where we get it.
I get continuing ed all the time. It's available wherever you need to find it. You can find it. If you
Is it
can't
on-
find it, I can help you find it online and in person. However, 500 is a minimal standard. It teaches you enough that you can pass the test. Just like in grade school, we teach our children so that they can pass the test. Massage school teaches you so you can pass the test. It's well-rounded enough. You get traditional Chinese massage information if that's going to be on the test that you're taking. I have acupressure, neuromuscular, a ton of different things. Those encompass my 760 hours.
So you
Leave
recommend
500.
that the minimum would be the 500 as.
250, 300, or 500 are the norms. There are states that only have 250 still.
So maybe
Well, my
250.
feeling is if you have a license, why go through it?
Well, we talked about grandfathering, right?
Yes.
Yes.
You've got the
but-
license.
But
Have you had any complaints in the last 20 or 25 years with these requirements? With the women that have done it for 20 and 25 years? Have you had any complaints? Has anyone been hurt? Has anyone complained that we're not professional?
We wouldn't know that.
No,
There's no way
no,
we
but,
know
no,
that.
but,
We've gotta-
no, we would know that. We have had no complaints. Has anyone been hurt or anything? No, we don't know that. We have had no complaints. And I suspect your business is such that if Sally gives a bad massage, that woman's gonna tell our friends and Sally ain't gonna get any more business. I mean, it's kind of
We're
self-policing.
self-regulate. We do self-regulate.
As
I mean, I understand she enjoys, learning all that different stuff, but I don't do energy work and I don't hold your head for an hour and do cranial sacral, all the different modalities that you can learn, sure. Leavenworth won't pay for it. So we're,
But she can use it,
She might
use
have
that
a
as a marketing tool of your business.
She might have clients that would like that. As a rule, I don't, they want a good back rub, they want you to rub their feet, and make their pain go away, but they don't want the different Reiki and all the different crystals and, that kind of stuff. Not in Leavenworth.
Right now, we are talking about the minimum requirement, not continuing education, just the minimum. And as the most recent graduate from a massage school, 70 hours is a joke. You can barely even learn how to properly feel a muscle.
We're successful.
But I'm talking about now. You'll be grandfathered in. But for a new graduate, they're graduating with 700. Bumping it up to 350 is no big deal for a new person getting out of school. It is zero.
Right now, let's say I go to the clerk's office, I want a massage therapist license. Here's my $350. You do the background check. Do I have to show you that I graduated from an accredited school?
For a massage therapist license, it's $50, and you bring in your certification that shows me that you have at least 70 hours of instruction.
So, but is there any massage therapist school that will give you a graduation certificate with only 70 hours? They say.
Yes.
They will.
You can't, you could have at one time, I don't, where I went,
Not now.
you can't now. They're gonna require you to take whether it's a
They're big
50-hour,
course.
500-hour school
Okay.
or the 750-hour
We just need the minimum.
school.
What is the
The new
minimum we
person
should
is
put in
coming
here?
out
We don't
with
know,
the
that's why we're asking you guys.
Or do we need a minimum, or do we need a diploma or a graduation certificate from an accredited massage school?
Bingo, you did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Take it
because
out.
I don't wanna say it has to be,
Accredited school, you're
Yeah.
gonna get,
is there a national accreditation of massage schools?
Yes.
no.
No.
No, yes, no,
That's
what
right, you
is it?
said no. You said
Not
no.
So, how, I mean, can I, so, we're saying let's have a diploma from an accredited school, and everybody says, yeah, that sounds good. Who gives the accreditation?
Exactly.
The state. The state would.
Of the schools?
APs gives an accreditation.
I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't.
APs, ABHES
Raise
is
the
the
mic up,
acronym for
ma'am.
it.
Yeah.
I don't know what it stands for.
Oh, okay.
And then there are several other accreditations. Schools can be accredited. The schools have accreditation. So you can say an accredited school, and
And we
they
do
have
that
to be an
in here.
accredited
That's
school
in here.
if they're getting student loans, because then they have to be able to back it. They have to have bonds on hand. I've run that for the school that I was in Mississippi. I helped them re-get their accreditation. I know the process. It happens. And the ones in
the
Kansas have it as well.
ABHPB, whatever you said at the
Yeah.
beginning, that's one accreditation
One,
agency.
yes.
And what school did you go to, ma'am?
I went to MTTI.
And you think it's accredited with APHPD?
That was 25 years ago. It's changed names. I have no clue.
You also have physical therapists, PTAs, OTAs, CODAs, nurses,
Right.
medical professionals. That's accredited education also.
Right, right.
So it doesn't have to be necessarily,
Well,
Massage.
you know,
Your current code says recognized.
yeah,
That's
and, yeah.
the term that's used.
What,
Whatever that is.
I think what we might be wrestling with here, I think we wanna keep it as simple as possible, and we get an accredited school, but we wanna make sure it's legitimate. I submit to you, I could probably go on the internet, I haven't tried it, but I bet I can find the school of finest massage, and they'll print me out a nice diploma I bring in and hand it to, the city clerk, and it says, down at the bottom, you know, and everything, you know, what is,
When Pauline was here, that was her job, to check those certificates out.
well,
Or the
but
Kansas State Board
what
of
do we
Healing
check it
Arts?
against?
We were
We call
checking,
the
there was
school.
nothing we were checking it against.
She didn't check it
Don't
out.
burst their bubble.
So,
Where are we on this? Do we,
Leave it like it is my thought.
All we wanna do is make you feel good.
Yeah.
You just come down on
so
us.
minimum requirement,
Commissioner Dedeke's, recommendation, leave it as is, and as is 70 hours?
No.
That's what we asked you guys. We asked you to recommend.
As you can see, this is
Give us a
probably the
minimum
most
number. We
contentious
can put it
issue
in there.
among,
I know
there's
CEUs are the-
there's a group that feels that there's, the new practice or the modern practice, and that every other city besides Lansing has a minimum of 500, and then there's a group that believes it should be lower. So this was a place that staff cannot make a recommendation. This was a clash amongst the group, so that's why we're bumping up against this.
and you
If
all
I had to
want
vote right
grandfather.
now, I would say 500 based on what I've heard. Grandfather, everybody who's, you know, already has their licenses, but we'll be in sync with all these other cities except for Lansing. And so, and I understand it's a profession and there's certain standards, and I'd rather err on the part of being, you know, conservative and saying that the minimum essential requirements are 500 hours versus, I think, trying to determine the accreditation of this could be hard, could be
Yeah,
difficult in terms of the accrediting agencies. So that's for what it's worth, that's my input for
agree
this
with
particular,
that.
so.
And
Y'all good with that?
you okay with that, Larry?
I go with that.
Just say, effective with all new licenses issued after January 1st, 2019, they must have that. Other ones that have been issued prior to that are grandfathered
Grandfathered
in.
in.
What they said, 750 is the minimum that you can get now, isn't it?
That's
It will be, or it is.
some schools.
I think it's kind of it's a compromise, it's what the other cities are doing, and it shows a level of,
If they move from one city to another to practice, then
yeah,
they're following the same rules.
good with that. It's better than 70.
What? Okay. That's what we're gonna do. Grandfather you in, but any new applications after January 1st is 500 hours.
I'm talking about in the greater Kansas City area.
Okay.
I'll let you guys take that offline because we're moving
We're on
on.
TV now.
Next item is ID cards.
Continuing,
Before we move on, there's section B. There's section B that says,
Yes.
or proof of a successful passage of the board certification exam administered by the NCBTMB.
Who's
which
that?
is the National Certification Examination for Therapeutic and Massage Bodywork. I
And
recommend.
is that a recognized institution? Have you heard of it?
To who?
To you. Have you heard of it?
Not, I have heard it for the last 25 years. When I started in this, it was recommended that we take the national test. I haven't left Leavenworth. I don't need the national test.
That's right.
When you renew it, it's $275 every 2 years for renewal fee.
I know.
That's on top of what we also pay to practice in this town.
Yeah.
I don't think you should allow, they're selling you a certification on whether or not you can pass a test. That's it.
So we'll just stay with the 500 hours and not have any other.
Yeah, take that,
comments?
take number
Please
B out.
write
No
to me.
other
I don't think
qualifying
it's
criteria.
necessary, and
What about someone that, I mean, we kind of stay, let me ask this question, but I just don't want to open a can of worms.
okay.
Somebody comes in town, let's say in the military, they're gonna be here for 3 years, and they've lived in Virginia for the last 3 years, and they've been practicing and whatever, and they have a certification from the state of Virginia, or Alexandria, Virginia, wherever they might be. And they come in, and Carla says, where's your 500 hours? I don't have that, here's, aren't you reciprocal with Virginia or something?
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah, it sounds reasonable, but once again, I can come up, I can game the system. That's what is, how do you verify that? Maybe we take those on a case-by-case basis. I don't want to open a can of worms, but there's gonna be so many what-ifs.
I came here from Mississippi. I had a state of Mississippi license. Y'all weren't reciprocal, so I got myself a Leavenworth license. I'm a big girl. I wanted to do business. I took care of it. I obeyed the law.
Yeah, okay, yeah, we'll do that. And well, if there's issues, obviously, we can react to that sometime.
Mr. Mayor, before we move, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ms. Bauer.
In the next paragraph there, 12-month, 24-month issue, right here.
Yes.
Where are you?
All licensed massage therapists who apply for renewal license must show proof that receive a minimum of 12 hours in the preceding 12-month period.
That's the continuing education.
Yes, but it's
Different.
And in speaking with the massage therapist a few weeks ago, or maybe a month ago now, this was what was kind of standard, but I think they kind of agreed that if we did that over a 2-year period, over 24 months, rather than 12 months, would be something reasonable.
How many hours is that?
12
12 hours, and that's continuing education piece of this?
Now, are we gonna be grandfathered in right now and not have to do that for the existing massage therapists?
I mean,
It's moving
cosmetologists
to-
that get new
it's
chemical
moving
products
24.
every year, they're not required to get education to use those. And they're way more dangerous than anything that we could do. I mean, I think it's out of, it's too much.
Yeah, that's true.
So you don't think there should be a continuing education requirement?
Once you're licensed, you're licensed, and
Yes,
it,
because you're practicing and you know what.
If you're a true professional, you're gonna keep up anyway with that stuff.
You
right?
learn what you do, yes, you do.
Right.
I mean, I wrote that in
No,
the
I
letter.
think that's good to have that in there.
Yes, ma'am.
where talk is right now, it's not requiring any CEUs. If you're licensed, you're licensed.
Okay.
But what are your thoughts, Commissioner Dedican, about, or that was a discussion while you guys are?
I think, the therapist that is sincere about their vocation and professionalism will learn as they need to learn, either from individuals or going to a school or whatever. I think, like you said earlier, we haven't had any complaints on them. I haven't had any of them on. Pat, I don't think has had any. We gotta keep government out of business.
Yeah.
And we're too far into it now.
And we've raised the initial standard anyway, right, from 70 to 500, so.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
The entry
that's
level
important,
is set
right?
pretty high, and then if, you know, to the lady there that offers different types of things, I mean, she uses that in her marketing presentations, or how she sells the product.
Okay.
The only other
Well,
thing,
you had a question.
the only other question is, the other cities, do they have a continuing, not just, yeah?
They do,
And
but-
it just varies?
This was, standard, the 12 hours.
Okay. I'm comfortable with what Mr. Dedeke said in terms of the continuing education, quite frankly, since we particularly raised the initial standard to get the license.
So just remove that requirement and it's.
I mean, that's.
Yeah, I think that's a consensus right now, that we
Yes.
can remove the CEU requirement.
Okay.
Is anybody, okay.
I'm okay with that.
I don't know if this is the point to discuss it or not. We're saying everyone's grandfathered in. But as of January 1st, 2019, you present your 500 for a new license.
Right.
Grandfathered in, but in January 1st, 2019, each one of you have to come in and get a new license. Am I correct? Or what if somebody says, I'm not gonna work 2019, they come back in 2020, they start at ground zero, show me your 500 hours, or what if they only want a license once every 5 years?
You gotta pick a date. And at that point, your rules are in place.
Okay,
If you
they're
want,
in place, but then they're grandfathered in, but if they do not
then you
renew,
gotta
do they
keep a
start over?
consecutive license, absolutely.
They start over at zero?
Be a new license.
Okay,
Yes.
okay,
Yeah, 'cause
so,
there's a lapse.
then you start over at zero. Understand that, therapist, that you have a license, keep it going, you're grandfathered in. You let it lapse, you come in with your 500 hours, type thing, okay.
Can I just,
yes,
make sure
ma'am.
I'm clear, for the grandfather clause, anybody who holds a license as of
December 31st,
December
2018.
31st is grandfathered,
Yes,
correct?
Or-
Okay, I just wanna make sure.
Yeah, yeah.
yes. So
Okay.
they could get it next week and be grandfathered in.
Okay. Next item, ID cards. I think we already discussed that, did we not?
We did, yes.
We had a consensus to get them.
I just wanna go back to, we kind of jumped,
Okay.
9 and 11 were kind of the same. Discussion item 10 was appeal. Any appeals to anything, would the governing body want to hear those appeals, or would they go to the city manager?
I would say city manager, cause he's first in line, and if they can't settle it there, if they wanna appeal it to the commission.
Okay.
Yes.
That's my thought.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't wanna be Solomon on every little petty, or not petty, but every little issue.
Well, Paul carries a sharp knife.
Yeah, he does, yeah, you can slice them up nicely. Okay,
We're at 12.
ID cards, with that one solved, the clerk's office can issue them, take a picture and you laminate them or something, give them to them just like driver's license. Background checks, we've solved that one.
What item number are you on now?
Discussion item 13, background checks.
Okay.
But it was also, went back to item 7, but, I think that's.
That
we're
was
locked
for
into
the
there.
establishment, this is now a person, so it would be the same.
Discussion item 14, appeal process discussion,
Same
appeal
thing.
for establishment owners, managers, be the same city manager and obviously go up. Fees, and mine just erased. There it goes. Our fee is $350, they range as low as $200 and up to $300. The renewal fee, which we've had in place for many years, is $350 and $175. Am I correct in that our fee structure has been
The end of your packet.
$350 and $175?
Correct.
Okay.
And I see no reason to change that, leave it as is. We've had that in effect and leave it as is.
I think the 350 is a little high
But how long have we had it in effect?
for this community. Yeah, but what kind of pressure you putting on the people that's paying it?
And where I
It has
agree with
gone
Nixon.
down since I started.
It used to be.
It used to be 500. Well,
The-
you're right,
the initial one
700
was
the
like
first year.
$700 and then it
First
was,
year.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was a way to block the therapist from working personally.
Yeah.
I mean, you got an outrageous fee, so you're not gonna have, the chance of the prostitution. It's what it was aimed at.
Right.
Prostitutes have more money than we do, they can pay it. Yeah. So it didn't work.
I got a feeling we're paying it anyway.
What are we charging for other types of establishments?
We've got a whole fee schedule, it's
It's all-
26 pages long.
Part of this should tie into what it's gonna take for this third party, right? I mean, do we have any idea what, out of that 350, how much? It's only 35? Okay.
Well, that's for a basic, if
it goes
somebody
further-
has moved
But
around
that's
a
for an
lot, it's gonna
establishment.
cost
If
a
you got a
little bit.
$50 employee, then that's $35 out of that 50. That's
Well,
another fee as well.
It looks like just about all of them around us are 300, we're the highest. So, what do you think about that?
I would be comfortable lowering it to 300, but, I mean, I agree with Mr. Dedeke. It just seems, we're just kind of a little bit of an outlier with the other cities, but.
I say 250 in between Bonner and Lenexa.
But they can get.
Lenexa 300.
175, go to 300 and 150 and 50.
I think 300, I think 300.
What'd you say?
300, 150 and 50, the renewal will be 150, 50 for the therapist license, 300 for the occupational license.
I second that.
Consensus, 300, 150 and 50. Clear on that, Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Okay, do we have a consensus, there, two over
Yes.
here?
That's good.
Yeah, okay,
So keep
that's where we are.
the therapist license at $50?
Yes.
Okay,
And
But if you run an in-home place, you're gonna pay your 300.
Just your 300.
okay.
I think that has covered all of our discussion points, am I correct?
You are correct?
Are we correct, guys?
Can I bring up one thing on the special use permit for the home-based business?
Sure.
Hours, this would be another area, if it's in like a neighborhood or something like that, are we comfortable with 12 to 6, or do we look
That's
at
what we've
it?
said.
I know
I think there are a couple of different ways to approach that. I think we talked about, we're probably gonna have to come up with some revisions to your zoning code to authorize these as a special use permit. And then, we'll probably need to discuss in the zoning code to what extent you want to actually put in performance standards into the zoning code under that. Or do you want it to leave it by, very general, that's such, and have such stipulations on that as you might need. And that's one place you could limit hours by, just on a case-by-case basis. It's generally, I think we'd have to take a look at what some of the performance standards are now for, there probably aren't many, for similar type of businesses. But, there might be some general performance standards we could put in.
Do we have hours in daycare?
Yes.
What are they, 6 AM? No earlier than 6 AM, I'm thinking.
I think probably 6 AM and then maybe to 6 PM. I don't know off the top of my head, but I know that there are.
You could address those in stipulations to the special use permit as well.
But if we have it, we leave it at midnight to 6, I suspect unless you know your neighbors very, very well, because they're gonna get a letter saying they wanna open a massage establishment, and they can be open till midnight and open at 6 in the morning. People will be lining up and saying, I don't want that traffic then, unless you know them very, very well. So it'd almost be it'd stop it to be enough.
And it's only one car coming at a time, it's not like 50
Still.
people are coming, it'd be like somebody coming
Still.
in business. They're
Yeah,
not gonna notice.
Yeah, but everyone's gonna know it, because they're gonna be notified.
You're gonna lock your car at midnight.
Yeah.
Or unlock it.
Mr.
So I think what the city attorney was referring to is to allow this, tonight's not sufficient or this ordinance is sufficient, it's gonna have to go through the development regulations, which changes go through the planning commission. So the planning commission is gonna probably give you a recommendation, making an SUP allowable for in-home, they'll probably make some other recommendations too. So it'll go through that. So we've done our part by saying to the planning commission, this is an allowed use, you put it in the development regulations, and then it'll eventually come to the city commission through that way.
Mr. Waters, in your opinion, like, we're saying if you do hotel calls or something, I think the consensus was, or we said you can go to midnight, and you can go as early as 6 in the morning. Could we set separate hours for in-home issue, we could do that?
You could, and you could have different hours based on the location. If you're in an area where, there's lots of on-street parking and homes are close together or things like that, you might, every land is unique. And when you start getting into a situation of zoning, every piece of property presents different challenges and different issues, and that's why you set it up as a special use permit, so that you have an additional level of review, that it's not something you can do as a matter of right, that you just have general rules. The whole point of the SUP is that you are specific, and we're gonna look at this particular piece of property and what rules, regulations we might put on this house, might be very different than this house, because they're completely different places, and that's why you have it as a special use permit, and not just they are allowed in residential districts under a general zoning layer.
I think most people will appreciate that it does go on till midnight at home, but I think if you run one at home, you also want it to go to about 9 o'clock. So a lot of people get off work at 5, 6 o'clock, and they may want something. Yes, ma'am. I get it, Mike, please.
Still on TV.
I know last time we discussed the doctor's note, communicable diseases, we didn't bring it up tonight.
No, I got rid of that first thing.
That was taken care of.
That was taken
All
care
right,
of.
all right.
That was the first thing I took out of there.
I think you did away with it, but.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments from the commission?
No, but I
Mr.
want to
Waters?
thank, oh, sorry, I want to thank the professionals for coming out and helping us with this
Yeah.
tonight. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, we're hoping that it, yeah, we're not trying to stymie you at all, we're just trying to put something into it, and hopefully it'll work well for all of us.
I think I need a massage after this.
He's got $100 burning a hole in his pocket. Go get him, lady. Okay, any other comments, questions? If not, thank you.
Thank you.